Hi, I'm Amanda,
And I'm Cara.
and welcome to the Historical Society podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back for episode 8, Election Decompression or Debriefing or Discussion.
We
Or
haven't
all of the
decided,
above.
all the above. Yeah, we haven't decided what we're going to call this episode, so those are some possible
Well,
options.
yeah, I think it's all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
election 3Ds. Election 3D? Election in
3D?
3D?
Yeah. Big D's? I don't know.
Triple Ds.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
it's a women's
I'm
podcast.
going. Episode 8, Triple D's.
Election Triple Ds.
Okay. So do you want to start with just the raw feelings of how we feel post-election?
Yeah.
I think you should go first because I feel like this hit you harder.
Yeah,
Not
well,
like I'm not affected, but I think it's hit you harder.
I think it's been more of a long, drawn out process. I think in
Yeah.
2016, I could not sleep that night, like because I was so shocked.
Yeah. And I was shocked after because I was very hopeful beforehand
Yeah, and I was
really
like very
demoralized
grim.
after. Yeah.
Yeah, and this time around, I felt like resigned.
Mm-hmm. You
Like
did.
yeah, I was like,
I was kind of
it's
surprised because you typically get very bent out of shape, but you were just kind of like, yeah, it's
yeah,
over.
yeah. It was like feeling defeated, basically, feeling like resigned to the reality. Um, yeah. So I think that first night was resignation, and then the next day I woke up and I was angry. I was like angry all day. Oh, I wanted to say the day of the election, I had heartburn all day before we knew what was going to happen. Like all day, just having heartburn problems. So I have GERD, and it just activated it. It was like
I know.
GERD,
I
GERD.
that
Yes,
sucks.
it was. Yeah. So then resignation, then anger. I was just ragey all day. Like I went through some. I normally don't think this way. But like to give you an example of that day, I went. This probably doesn't sound like much, but I went to the car wash, and I saw that there was like trash right beneath my car, and normally I would have picked it up, and
Yeah.
it was a dime there. I was like, oh, money. Um, and
Oh, money.
so the thought went through my mind of like doing
Please
good
don't.
doesn't get you anywhere. Only the evil people are elevated. And I was like,
Oh.
screw picking up the trash for other people. I'm just gonna be selfish and take the
Oh.
dime. And then I was like, screw being nice. And then I just left it there. And then like as I was driving away into the car wash from my vacuum spot, I was just like,
Yeah.
if we all did that, we would be in some serious trouble.
I've had that feeling before, just because it feels like when evil feels like it's always triumphing. And you're like, what the hell? It's like you're living in an upside down world
Right.
when you're just trying to do good, you're just trying to do right, and not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to be making a dent. I've been there many times.
Yeah. So I just was like, that's not who I am. That's not how I want to live my life. I did not go pick up the trash, which I should have done, but I did take the dive.
Wow.
Oh well.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Oopsies. So I will work on that. But it caused me to like realize that like that kind of almost like blind rage. It really doesn't do any good. Like it
That
was
always
okay,
makes,
I think, to feel it,
yeah,
but coming out of it is important, I think, as well.
for sure. That's like
Yeah.
how you maintain good mental health.
Hmm.
You're able to process a negative feeling and then get through it.
Right.
Um,
I think
That's so funny to me that you've always picked up change.
I
Like,
know.
I don't know if that came from when you were a kid or what, but I think it's funny because I'm always like a penny or like a quarter. I'm like, who cares? Not enough money for anything. And you're like, a quarter.
Oh my gosh, this is a
But I
quarter.
guess if you pick up quarters for 10 years, you'd be pretty wealthy.
That's right. I need to pick up some more quarters.
Yeah. Anyway, it's really funny to me.
Yeah. And then today, like as soon as I woke up this morning, it was like this sudden like I felt like I had a pit in my stomach. And it was like this
Yes.
feeling of like that really happened. Like
Mhm.
that's real. Like he was really elected. And now I have to process through what that means, basically. And so I feel like first chunk of the day, I felt pretty, I felt kind of depressed, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Today.
yeah. Well, okay. So there was one other thing yesterday that I experienced. So in my anger and my rage, I knew at some point I was going to have to take um down the Harris Wall's giant flag that was flying, and I replaced it with
In
the
front of
St.
our
Louis
house.
flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
St.
I
Louis
was like,
flag is
I'm
cool
not
though.
giving this up. Yeah. So I like positioned it down in the little gym I created in the basement. So there's this
Our home
giant
gym.
Harris Walls flag. And I was like,
Yeah.
we're not giving up. We're fighting. So I went into like this like stage yesterday. And then this morning I woke up and I was like, ah,
But
yeah.
fighting in like a very healthy, respectful way.
Yeah, not a violent way, just so like we're not
Yeah.
giving up. We're, yeah,
Still fighting for the right, still fighting for the rights of people.
right. Fighting
Yeah.
for dignity, fighting for
Yeah.
compassion, fighting for justice, fighting for the right things.
Yeah.
It's not
Totally.
fighting to win. It's not fighting to suppress, oppress, and dominate other people. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
clarify.
yeah. And so I think it's kind of been this, I don't know what tomorrow will feel like exactly, but your turn,
I don't know.
Kara. How has
I
this
mean,
been for Kara?
post-election, it was interesting this year because I've been hearing you say to me that you thought he was going to win for a while now. And I don't necessarily think I thought that because then I think I try to be hopeful. Um, and I think you'd been telling me that so frequently that I was definitely, I felt that pit in my stomach, start to form, or that gnawing in my stomach, of like negative emotion. But it happened because everyone was texting me during my rehearsal. I had a rehearsal the evening of the election, and I was so distracted because I was like that you guys were like piling in, and he's gonna win, he's gonna win, she's gonna lose, and it was just like, oh, it felt heavy that night. Um, but also I have had a lot of personal stuff going on in other news, and I felt distracted by that, and also heartened in a lot of ways by that news. So it was this weird mix of emotion for me. Um, but I think also because of what I went through in the other area of life, which may or may not come up in this episode, but I think because of that, I've developed a lot more resilience through things like this because things don't always work out in the short term,
Right.
and it can take a long time to achieve any sort of justice or equality or fairness or any of the above. So I think that's where I sort of am at with it all.
Right. Makes
But I've
sense.
certainly everyone in my orbit is dealing with it, and I've had conversations with so many people over the last couple of days. There's a general sentiment of sort of feeling demoralized and low,
Right.
and like nothing we do is going to make anything right. But for whatever reason, I'm feeling more hopeful, and we'll get into more of this in our throughout the episode as to why. But
Right. It's funny. And you probably know this too, Kara. Like so we were both raised in very conservative families and very conservative faith communities and very conservative areas of the
Mhm.
country. Kara's from Texas and I'm from Appalachia, like I've said, or Appalachia, depending on your preference. And the county where
Western
I'm,
Maryland.
yeah, in Western Maryland, and the county where I'm from went, I think that it was 70% in favor of Trump and 20% in favor of Kamala. And
Yeah.
there's 10% in there. I don't know who they voted for. um, but, you know, outside, like on my Facebook feed, because I've chosen to remain friends with people who I have a history with,
Mhm.
um, who, were on there gloating basically. Like somebody posted this giant red wave across the United States, and people are like, finally, and I've been praying for this, and then posting Bible verses like God heard us. We have our second Jesus. You didn't say that,
Amanda.
sorry.
Amanda.
It's just it ended up making me very angry
Of
because
course. You have a lot of baggage there.
yeah, but also because of what Trump represents.
Of course.
That
Yep.
somehow, and I don't know if it's because they're not informed. They don't read the news. They don't watch his rallies, his speeches. It's possible. They just don't understand. but we have
That's
a
possible.
man who is like blatantly not Christian, blatantly. And like he's done things that, in our lifetimes, we've never seen a presidential candidate pretend like he's giving a microphone a blowjob.
Oh
Never
my
seen that.
gosh.
But that happened last week.
Oh,
We've never seen a presidential candidate use such vulgar language, vulgar references, be accused by at least 25 women of sexual misconduct, be an actual felon, a convicted felon, like all of these things, that is very anti-Christian behavior. And yet these people are like, this is who God wanted. This is just, I am so relieved that we have this man as our president, as our representative. Like it
yeah.
literally, like, it blows my mind. I get furious about it. And it, like, to see, like, this marrying of, like, it's just, like, so hypocritical. And I don't know how to process it, like, why it's happening, but it
Yeah.
is. And
So,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
And we weren't really gonna I think, we have our episode today sectioned out into talking points, but since you started talking about it, I'll go ahead and mention that I have issues with that too, um, with regard to what happened to me with because I was sexually assaulted. And when I have a lot of support, thankfully, and a lot of support specifically within my family and within the Christian community, um, you know, which ends up being a lot of friends and family, which is great. I have also dealt with a lot of disbelief from people and cruelty and all of the above. So, but for me, when I have people in my life who I know love me deeply and I know support me deeply and absolutely believe me in all the things, it's just hard for me when they turn around and they support a candidate who's been accused of the same things and they're like, oh, he didn't do that, or that's not true, or how can we believe them? When that's literally what was done to me by these other people who want to defend the person that they think is not guilty of this thing. So it's just such a strange thing for me to stomach.
Right. Totally.
And it's really upsetting to me on a lot of levels. I'm like, how can you just dismiss it when I know they know the pain I've been through, having experienced that myself from other people,
Right.
and they can't see the correlation
Right.
and how that could be so deeply upsetting to someone who's been through assault,
Yeah.
sexual assault.
Yeah.
So I know we weren't going to get into that straight away, but it's really hard.
Yeah. 100%.
It's just a vicious cycle. And I know this episode is not about this, but I've talked about this before. When people are accused of something of this magnitude, I can empathize on some level with the people that think they know this person or love this person that's been accused, because I'm sure they never saw it. I'm sure that's a side of this person that they've never seen before. Because they're going to hide it,
Right.
They're
Right.
going to deny it. They're going to hide it. And as I've always said, a perpetrator is not going to assault everyone in their lives. So people are going to have vastly different experiences with this person or a person accused. Anyway, I wish people could think a little bit more deeply about these things.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Were we eventually going to talk about that statistic about the
In this
voting?
episode,
Yeah. Did you want to
I
bring
don't
that
know.
up?
Which statistic?
So there were, people are trying to
Oh, yeah.
understand what happened in the election, like who voted for whom, and
Yeah.
we, the statistic for women was shocking. I mean, for Black women and for Black women and Latino women voted more strongly in favor of Kamala Harris. Black women and Black men more so than any other group. Thank you. And white women, terrible. I think they voted more in favor of Donald Trump. Is that right? Than Kamala Harris, right?
I
Didn't they
think you
break?
wrote the statistics down, but yes, I think that's what you wrote.
Yeah, and that's. I
Maybe
mean,
we can
it's
check.
it's shocking. It's shocking.
But I thought, wasn't there a larger number of Latino voters voting for Trump this year?
Yes. Yeah. Especially
But
Latino men. Latino men.
Okay, that's why I
Yeah.
wondered if there was a distinction in the genders.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
not a,
here, have it written down, but I can't find it.
yeah. We were just going to talk about kind of like the white women component there. You know, that
And also
there's,
I think it's white women and evangelical.
we did, oh, I didn't see that. I mean, I know that evangelicals voted strongly in favor of Donald Trump.
Okay, yeah,
And obviously some portion of the white women vote is the women of the evangelical
some
vote,
portion,
but
yeah.
that
Okay,
particular statistic wasn't involving the religion piece.
okay.
Yeah.
Statistic.
What did I say?
I don't know. It always sounds like you're saying statistic.
We looked at the statistics. They're very interesting. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, shall we move on?
We shall. Yes, we shall.
So, do you kind of want to talk about what could happen under a Donald Trump presidency?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
We
it's,
could like start.
yeah, I mean, we thought about doing this. This is kind of a hard thing because, yeah, I mean,
We want
right
to be
now,
positive and
yeah, we want to
hopeful.
be positive and like all those great things. But my theory is it's better to be clear-eyed, than it is to pretend,
Yeah,
you know.
we talked about this, and I was like, okay, Amanda, like I know this is extremely important to her that people hear it all in this clear-eyed manner, and I was like, okay, do we want to freak everybody out and bring everybody down, or do we want to try to be hopeful? And then we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe a little of both.
Yeah,
We don't want to freak people out, but it's more of an educate,
right.
at least get it in your mind, the what ifs, and then, but we don't leave it there. There's hope. There's movement forward. There's a way forward.
Right.
Yeah, and a positive, mentally healthy way forward.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I better stop talking because I don't think I'm making sense.
You are.
Oh, thank God.
That was beautiful.
Okay.
All right. My turn to talk? No, your turn to talk.
Well, okay. I was gonna see if we hit what we were talking about.
I think we're into the what could happen phase of the podcast.
Okay, well, how about you start with that, and then we'll break down the areas.
Okay, so
The general what could happen, and
right.
then we'll go into specifics.
I mean, I think it's almost undeniable that there are groups of people that kind of no matter what happened will be experiencing something more negative than other groups of people. I don't know if there's a way around that. And so basically, the people who are the greatest zone of risk or risk zone, however you want to say that, are marginalized people. People splash zone in the negative Trump splash zone.
You really don't want.
No, they're in the golden shower splash zone.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I shouldn't have gone there. I apologize. It's terrible. Okay, so are people who are already marginalized, so the most vulnerable in society, and so that's like people of color, indigenous people, women, LGBTQIA plus people, immigrants. So, I think Latinos in general, and anybody who is an immigrant legally or illegally, frankly. Yeah. So I think though us as women and anybody who transgendered people, especially
people of other religions.
Yeah.
Other than the mainstream sort of Christian religion.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Muslims especially.
Anybody who's sort of an other or doesn't fit within the mold.
Doesn't fit the kind of Christian nationalist mold.
Because I think there is a fear. I think there's a fear there of just not understanding different ways of life or different walks of life. And I think, unfortunately, while you don't have to agree with people, and you certainly won't agree with everyone, I don't think there's always this need to fear. I think there's a lot of misinformation.
I think there's also just simply hate.
Made.
Yeah, there's also hate. Yeah. So I think on one side you have fear, and on the other side you have just hate, or maybe they're not opposites; they're just on the same.
Or maybe that fear grows into that.
Could
Uh,
I feel like there's
I
a
mean, don't
Star
you
Wars
think
quote in there.
you're taught one thing about a group of people? You're taught that they're the enemy. You're taught that they stand against everything that you're against, and
Yeah,
then suddenly everyone who has that distinction is your enemy.
right.
And I think that hate does grow.
Totally.
What's she looking at?
I
You on your
wanted to
computer?
see. Okay, this is really.
What's that noise? Is it a train? You hear it?
I think it is.
Oh,
Oh.
it's a train in the distance.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna laugh at this. I
No, I'm
have
not.
a Star Wars quote that is just so fitting. I'm gonna nerd out for a second. Okay.
Wait for a second.
Okay. Sorry. It's like my entire life. Okay. Whatever.
Okay,
All right. So
go
this
ahead.
is from Star Wars. This is Yoda.
Okay.
So this made me
Don't
think.
do the voice. Just read it. I know you.
Yeah,
Don't
I
do
can't
it.
do it that well. I was like, Sia, have you? Okay.
No.
All right. No,
I,
don't do it. Okay. Fear is
I
a
warned you.
path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. That's a
Well,
good
damn it,
quote.
Yoda did it again.
I know. I think that's really fitting.
It's
Brilliant,
fitting. There's a
Yoda.
lot of there's a lot of Star Wars that lends itself to life,
Right.
the
Yeah.
realities of life.
Yeah.
The good versus evil thing.
Yeah.
I could go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole about why good and evil exists the way it does. I don't understand. I don't understand it. Why can't we all just be decent and good to one another? Why is that so hard? But it's impossible because there's always evil present. Um. Anyway, different rabbit hole, different episode.
All right. All right, Kara. Are we going to
Good. I
talk
like
about?
that quote. I'll
Yeah,
hand it
me
to
too.
you.
Thank you. I
Bravo.
appreciate it. Yay.
Okay. So what can happen in other areas? Let's break it down. Let's first talk about the economy. Let's talk about the tariff situation.
Yeah. Okay. So I decided to kind of focus on worst case scenario. So my theory
Okay.
was hope for the best, plan for the
Mhm.
worst.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So,
Oh, can I tell a story really quickly on that note?
okay, go ahead.
Okay, just really quickly.
Yeah,
So in March of 2020, Amanda was like flipping out. She's like, I've been reading all these articles on this virus.
I think it was February.
Was it February? Oh, so it was,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. It was a little bit before that. But you were still talking about it as March, because March was kind of the start of when it sort of started to explode.
Yeah.
Because it was like the first week of March when thing. Okay. Anyway, yeah, you'd been talking about it forever, and you're like, we gotta go stock up. Like, we're not gonna work. The whole country's gonna shut down. The world's gonna shut down. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, everything's fine. Like everybody's going to work. Like it's fine. You're like, no, we got to go do this. So we spent the next week going to every store.
We got
And
toilet paper, people.
She did. She, and I thought she was being ridiculous. I really did. And I fought you every step of the way, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we bought canned goods, like non-perishable items, like everything. We put cash, like little amounts of cash in envelopes, and like you put them in these big tubs, or these, what do you call those?
Tupperware bins.
Tupperware bins, like big
Yeah.
Tupperware bins. And we had it all sectioned off in the basement. It was like very pretty, like very organized. When it was all ready to go, and you're like, okay. And I was like, you're crazy. And then like days later, everything started shutting down. And I was like, oh my God, you like nailed it. So all that to say, when Amanda talks about something, I tend to believe her. Now I tend to believe you. I'm like, okay, I'll weigh that.
Yeah.
Because you do. You read a ton and you like seek out all the sources you can find on a matter. So I value that. And I've always trusted your like intuition,
Oh.
just as a human being. And thankfully I've grown in that way. Now I have a little bit of that I can kind of tap into myself.
Right.
In my own life. So that's great. But anyway, I wanted to tell that story.
Thanks,
So back to
Kara.
Kara. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing right now. So the economy, it's ironic given that I think a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump basically want the end of inflation and want money. They just want money, basically. Want more
Which
money.
is valid. It's valid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a valid point.
The problem with that is that the economy is actually the strongest economy in the world right now, and it recovered the best out of the pandemic. And so, and interest rates are starting just now to fall because things are in such a better place. And it wasn't a recession, it was a soft landing that occurred. So it was just, anyway. Okay, so Trump's economic proposal involves tariffs. He loves tariffs. And so I looked this up so I could get the right numbers, but you're funny. You're like fixing your hair. You're like,
Well, because I didn't do it today. I just put loose in it.
I like it.
Fun of me. Thank
I
you.
like it. Yeah. Okay, so he's
Rebecca's
proposing,
hair.
I know, he's proposing 10% tariffs kind of across the board on imports, and then possibly 25% tariffs from imports from Mexico and 60% tariffs from China. I've actually seen 100% as well.
Wow.
But
From
this is
China?
not, yeah, but this is not in the article that I took these from. That was from yesterday in Reuters.
Okay.
And so as an example, I desperately need a new laptop. Like mine is 10 years old. The speakers are shot. The only way I can hear anything is by using my headphones. Otherwise, it sounds like something's busted on my computer. It's awful.
Garbled.
It's slow. I have to constantly take stuff off of it and put it onto an external hard drive. So anyway,
Yeah.
long story short, according to PC Magazine, if these tariffs are implemented, my new laptop that I would like to get would cost 45% more. So,
And you already won with all the bells and whistles, so
yeah, I always buy the best thing and then try to use it for a decade. So,
yeah.
may not be the best policy, but yeah. But
But it's
anyway,
fun.
so the way tariffs work, not everyone understands this, but the penalty is paid by the company, the U.S. company importing the goods. And then what that company does is then impose those increases onto the consumer. So tariffs are actually paid by the American consumer.
So, okay, they are paid by the consumer. Are they also, does it also impact the workers' salaries and things?
Well, I
And/or
mean,
benefits what you call it, like year-end bonuses or things? I
you
mean,
could say that would be
wondering.
it would be like an effect. So like if let's say companies aren't able to sell their product enough of their product because the prices are higher. I mean,
Yeah.
if the company begins to suffer, I mean, the first thing they do is probably lay off workers.
Yeah, so it
So,
makes you wonder, like, it's like a domino effect.
yeah. I mean, the concept behind tariffs is that it would cause companies to invest in manufacturing in the United States. But
Yeah.
I actually watched a Wall Street Journal video on this. And so under the Trump administration, there were several thousand jobs that were created by some of the washing machine tariffs, but it cost the American taxpayer $815,000 per job. And so it was kind of an ineffective way of creating jobs in the United States. There are more effective ways of doing it. And then unfortunately, the American public will bear the brunt of that. And it was also saying that even if you have washing machines for instance, in this example, washing machines were had this tariff imposed on them. So the cost of them all went up across the board. Then the cost of dryers also went up because it was the supply of it. So if you buy a washing machine, you're going to buy a dryer. And then the companies raise their dryer prices to match their washing machine prices. So it's not, yeah. So that's the thing with tariffs. Like we're going to suffer for whatever these products are that have these tariffs imposed. The next thing in regards to the economy related to Trump's positions is this mass deportation. And so I'm putting it under economy because I don't think people realize that the cost of food, the cost of construction, all of those things are going to go up. So like a lot of illegal immigrants have been here for a very long time, are employed, actually do pay taxes, and they help our country run. And it's almost like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of a concept. Like there's a middle ground here that no one's willing to, that the right is not willing to discuss. Like these people have been here, their families are here, they want to be here, they're invested in being here. Why not create a pathway forward for them into citizenship? That's just my opinion. But nevertheless, back to the economy, this will hurt the economy. It's going to cost a ton of money. And I'm going to get down to violence later. But yeah, so a lot of these...
So why will the cost of food go up?
Because there won't be people working on the farms. We'll suddenly won't have people to move the food off of the farm to be sold at the grocery store. like the chain will be broken basically or severely impaired because you just won't have enough people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I already kind of take issue with that. I mean, it's just like, it's such a hard way of life anyway. So literally, a lot of these people are fighting for this already very difficult way of life just to survive,
Right.
just to afford to take care of their families and pay their
Right.
bills and exist. I don't know. That's just really kind of a sad reality.
Yeah. And the last thing I wrote down was just simply tax cuts, that they're going to favor the wealthy, favor the corporations over middle income and poor Americans. I feel like in moments like this, when you see that happen, you'll see this kind of disparity of income. You know, we've seen that already, but like the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer, kind of a concept. So not great.
Okay, so let's move along to the healthcare realm.
Yeah,
So, how about defunding of the NIH and the CDC?
sure. Okay, so I learned about this kind of from a friend of mine. One of my students' moms works in a medical research facility that relies heavily on government funding to do their medical research. And it's, you know, when research facilities around the country do this research, it's very important for all of us that they continue to investigate things. And even think about women's health. Like we learned that the Biden administration had given it $300 million just for women's health research. And that's something that needs to happen because it's so under researched, because it's been such a low priority for so long.
I don't. I
And
think that it's so interesting because I feel like so few people know that,
yeah,
which is not something that's talked about.
yeah. And so the apparently everybody who works at her lab is very worried about this. And it makes sense because think back to the pandemic. Trump despised and made fun of and whatever to the
Downplayed.
NIH and the
Yeah.
CDC. They blamed the coronavirus on
Downplayed their
Dr.
effectiveness.
Fauci.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just a lot of negative energy. And so it wouldn't shock me if they wanted to try to hurt these things.
And this is the same. These are the same organizations that have been keeping us healthy for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, nothing's different except someone's now like criticizing them and
Right.
trying to destroy their reputation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well-meaning people that are trying to just educate us on the science behind all of this.
Yeah. And so another point I was going to make about health in general is just I feel like RFK Jr. is kind of a mixed bag, kind of a crazy bag, crazy mixed bag. I don't really like him personally. I'm sure there could be some people who like him. Maybe some people listen, so sorry if I offended you. I didn't mean to. You know, but he's kind of known for being an anti-vax kind of a person. He, I guess, wants to take fluoride out of drinking water. The way I've read it, it's completely out of drinking water. Again, the same friend told me that there is a recent study to show that excessive fluoride can lower the IQ of kids. And so that's obviously a problem, but it's more like, she was saying, it's more like it needs to be regulated and less like it needs to be completely removed because there's a value to it strengthening teeth, basically.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. It feels very like all or nothing in some of his proposals. I do think that some place where I would align with him would be like taking chemicals out of our food supply that don't need to be there.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, like investigating microplastics and forever chemicals and all of those things like that needs to be taken care of. Now, what's ironic to me about that is he's aligning himself with the party that wants to deregulate everything, including environmental protections. So we might not have chemicals in our food anymore, but we're going to have them in our water and our air. We're going to breathe those. We're going to live next to a company that gets to pollute the rivers. We get to only drive gas-powered cars and pollute the air.
You got to even it out somehow.
Yeah. So less microplastics, but more pollution. So it's really ironic.
Even
I
Stevens.
don't know. Yeah, even Stevens. Nobody wins.
Even Steven? Is it singular? Even
I don't know.
Steven?
Don't ask me. I never know with these things. I always make
Nope.
up things unintentionally, but yeah.
All right. So is that it for the healthcare?
Yeah,
Have you said everything you want about RFK?
I think so.
Okay. So now let's move on to climate. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord and divesting from green energy.
Yeah.
You kind of already hit on some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just complete denial of climate change. Like it's not happening apparently at all. So,
That gets me. And I know it's not everyone, but we were just when all the hurricanes were hitting, we were hearing from some Trump supporters that they thought, and I don't know if it's a joke or not, that thought that the president controlled the weather.
no, they believe that.
The president in office controlled the weather, or
Right.
the party in office controlled the weather.
Right. And then that person said that if Trump got elected, that he would then control the weather as well. Isn't that
Okay.
crazy?
Now, the other thing I always wonder about is, you and I were raised Christian. And some of the people I know within the Christian community talk about how climate change is not real because God's just going to take care of the earth. Just going to take care of it.
Right.
Just as is. It's just going to keep keep
Doing its
spinning.
thing.
Everything's going to be fine. Nothing's going to affect it.
Right.
Like, the example I always use is like the idea of biblical marriage. Like, marriage is also you could say biblically ordained, right? What does that mean? The God's just going to take care of it. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to work on your relationship. You don't have to like make sure you're staying good with your significant other. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. Like
Right.
all of this emphasis and like work is put into one thing that's God ordained, but not the other thing.
But of course, Christian nationalists believe that whatever the man says goes, so you don't really have to work on it then. Yeah. I also think of it as like, I think it's hard for me because if you think about your own body, the concept of our body as its own ecosystem, if we don't take care of our body, we have these negative consequences.
Yeah, your body's a temple. That's also biblical.
Yeah. So,
People try hard to take care of their bodies.
Yeah. And it's just like a microcosm of our world at large. If you don't take care of what's around you.
Yeah.
I was going to say a curse word. I guess I won't. It goes
Probably.
to poopy.
Oh, yeah. Crapper?
It goes to the crapper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wish there was just a little bit more like critical thinking about stuff like that.
It doesn't exist.
Just a little bit.
Not in certain circles.
Well, I'm sure there are varying views on this within Christian community too. So, I mean, I have varying views on it.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Let's move along to women's rights.
Sure. Okay.
About the possible national abortion ban, first of all. So, we know that states have the abortion ban has been left up to states thus far.
Currently. Yeah.
Yeah. And wasn't it like how many states voted to was it 7 out of 10 in the recent election?
Yeah, I don't remember how many states there were. Yeah,
Some
it failed in Florida. I think it failed somewhere else too. It passed here in Missouri. Yeah, but the thing with that is that was a new thing, because originally they wanted this national ban. And then I have this suspicion that he needed to pivot to win.
We're talking about Trump?
Yeah, he needed to pivot to win the election because he knew that certain women who are Republican, want to continue to have access to abortion care. And so he needed to say, we're leaving it up to the states. That's how it should be. But a huge chunk of Republican Party that's not going to work for them. They're like rabid pro-life supporters. Like, that's like, some people, that is the only issue they vote on. That's it. They don't care about anything else. So I can't imagine that Trump is. I mean, that's my feeling. It's my opinion. It could be completely wrong. It may not touch it, but I feel like his administration will, and there'll be a push from the Republican Party to do a national abortion ban. Yeah.
I feel like that this issue is always just a bit deeper than just abortion. Do you know what I mean? I I don't also feel like I have the right to speak on it necessarily because I've never had children. I don't plan to have children. Um, I'm not like pro-abortion, yay. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a such a difficult decision for a woman to make, I would assume.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not just there's so many issues that kind of fan out from there or so related to it.
Right.
It's just such a complex personal issue
Right.
for a woman, and I think it's really a touchy subject.
Yeah. I
Makes
mean,
me kind of like sick to my stomach to think about it all because it's not easy. It's not simple.
right.
It's not black and white.
I think for me the problem in the end, because like Kara and I both grew up pro-life. Like our stances in the past were pro-life. We were anti-abortion. And I remember when I was in college arguing with some of my friends who were Christian and who were pro-choice. And I was like, oh, it was like blowing my mind. I was like, how could you support this, blah, blah, blah. But like the position I have today is basically, I look at the fact that, I mean, these stories of women dying because they cannot have an abortion procedure when they need it. They're being barred. So the women are going to die from this. There's also statistics that say that there's a graph of this that I've seen for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. Under Republican presidencies, abortion rates go up. And under Democratic presidencies, abortion rates go down. And abortion rates have gone down consistently for quite some time since the 70s. I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't love abortion, but I don't think I deserve the power to tell a woman what she should or should not do when it's
That's
a
how
very
I
hard
feel.
decision. I think it should
It's
be her choice and her
it's
doctor's choice
personal.
and her
Yeah.
family's choice, but her choice. And
Yeah, like
it's not mine.
the doctors who know the health concerns.
Yeah. And so by placing these blanket bans on there, women are dying. And not only that, we know this, but what about when they say, oh, but we'll let it happen for rape and incest? Do you have to prove your rape before you get your abortion? Is it dependent on what if you don't get a
'Cause my
conviction?
God, we know how hard that is.
Yeah. So I'm just like,
Ugh.
it doesn't, it's
The whole issue makes me so uncomfortable to talk about because I don't feel like it's my place.
yeah. But also, I mean, my theory with why it goes up under Republican presidencies so often is that Republicans are really kind of concerned about the birth of the baby, but then after that, they're not really concerned about helping the mother. And, we learned in Project 2025, they're less concerned about single mothers and more concerned about fathers, trying to make sure that they get all the help they need. But the single mother, that's more of the phenomenon. And so
we should also
that's the person who's birthing that baby, carrying that baby.
We could also say, yeah, we should also say that these statements that we make they're generalizations because there are probably people out there that care about both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't want to like pigeonhole people into specific, like overgeneralize, but I get what you mean.
Yeah.
As a party, the things we hear, this is the impression it gives.
Right.
Like that's based upon maybe policies that are in place or, like the idea that they want to take away birth control or preventative things that would, but also hold this other, like ban abortions, but that they don't want to prevent maybe the way unwanted pregnancies occur. I don't know.
Exactly. That's what's so infuriating about it is they want to limit access to contraceptives. Yeah. So they want to ban abortions. They don't want women to have access to birth control. And so they're forcing women to have pregnancies that they're not ready to have, they're unwanted. And nothing happens to the men. Why don't we
Yeah.
have national vasectomies?
And or sex education
Until
in schools. Like,
they also probably don't want to talk about that either because they want to talk abstinence, you know? So it's
yeah.
like, let's pretend that, yeah, it's just, it's frustrating. The whole
I
thing
think,
is frustrating.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, this issue is such a personal, private issue. Like I said, again, it makes me very uncomfortable to talk about because I don't really feel like I have a right to even weigh in, which I guess would lead me to a similar stance of it should be in the hands of people who are dealing with it.
Right.
I think it was someone in my family, I don't remember who it was, used to say, you can't force morality on someone. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
You can't force that.
And it's also interesting about this topic in general that in the 70s,
I mean, sorry, I have to clarify. I meant whatever the person's that's doing the pushing, whatever their version of morality is.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was also going to say in the 70s, though, the stance of Christians was not anti-abortion.
Was
It
it
would
not?
eventually become that. It was eventually seen as like the Southern Baptist Convention guy was like, it's up to the woman, blah blah
Wow. In the
blah.
70s?
Yeah, and so it became this issue, I think, to
Wow.
kind of galvanize support on the right, basically. So you can look that up. Like I think that's a
I
legit
think I
thing
do
that
remember
happened.
reading that.
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, I also want to make clear that um, we have a lot of people in our lives who have, I'm sure, gone through abortion, had to make difficult choices. And I think I just want to be clear that I think life is so hard. And I think sometimes we're met with impossible choices. And I don't want anyone to feel um, like they're being attacked or looked down upon or any of that. Like this issue, it makes me want to cry, to be honest. Like, I mean, I know from my own vantage point, like the issue of sexual assault is deeply personal. And when I hear people talking about it that don't get it or don't understand it or say something about it that just doesn't line up with what I know to be true, then it's hurtful. So I don't want that to happen with this discussion,
right.
at least when we're talking about it.
Yeah,
So maybe we should, I don't know, I have this feeling we should wrap that up, but
yeah, I think you're right.
it's
Totally.
really making me emotional because I don't want to like say something that's going to hurt someone that I don't, on an issue that I can't personally understand.
Right. Sounds good.
But it is, that we can see why it's such a big issue.
Yeah.
In our society. I didn't expect to get emotional about that. Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to move on to education?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I was going to say, we already kind of hit on with women's rights, is just the loss
Sorry.
of interest in women's health research. That's a very real
Oh,
possibility.
okay. I thought we
when
talked about
funding
that a
dries
little bit
up.
earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted to, yeah.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
so possibilities with education, what could happen? The abolishment of the entire Department of Education. So that's a proposal in Project 2025. Then we have banning of books, which is already happening in Republican controlled states. We have forcing schools to teach a nationalistic curriculum, like a specific type of American history that is very pro-US, very, let's not look at the dark things. Let's not look at like the racism that exists and the sexism. And then this was really weird. I found out about this today. Like there's this proposal for forming a national university. It's called the America Academy or the American Academy that would be free for people to attend. But I'm sure it's like an indoctrination station, basically. Yeah. So that's very worrying. I think and there's also a push to
indoctrination station.
There's a push to, I think, try to defund public schools because they want to make, like, the way it stands now, I believe in most states, when people pay taxes, their taxes for the local school systems goes to that public school. But now they want to propose that if you're a family where you homeschool your kids, then you keep that money, you keep that tax. Or if you want to go to a private school, that tax goes to that private school. And the problem is that will continue to weaken the public school system when public school systems already are really lacking in funding. So it's just going
Yeah.
to exacerbate that problem again. And it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're like, see, public schools are terrible, and so let's defund them and let's make them worse.
Yeah.
And then what? You create these little academies everywhere where people are robots and get indoctrinated about how amazing America is, and you can't question you can't question Trump. He's amazing,
Yeah.
and there's no such thing as slavery.
So there's also something a little related. I don't know how well related to what we're talking about just now, but it's in my mind. So, you and I were both raised very Christian, and I think we're good people. Like we've been brought up well. But I think there's this talking about the education of children right now. Every parent obviously has the right to how their children are educated and the things that they're told and taught about. But I feel like some of the Christian sentiment with regard to education is fear-based. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, like, of my family, I think I'm obviously more left wing than anyone in my family, and I think probably vastly different than most of my family. But we all get along really well, and we love each other, and the same is true for you.
Right.
But I think there's this fear of, like, okay, if we send our kids out into the world and they learn about all this stuff that we disagree with, that somehow they're going to go off the deep end, off the evil end. You know what I mean by that?
Uh-huh.
So, but I don't actually I feel like because I've lived a different life, I would say, than my siblings for sure. I feel like I've seen more of things. I've met a lot of different people, but I've still decided what I want for me and what I want for my belief system and all of that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that fear shouldn't necessarily be as strong as it seems to be.
Right.
I don't know if I'm saying the right thing. I think I'm also trying to, like, not say too much and nothing inflammatory. But,
I mean, the thing for me though is like
go ahead.
if you are trying to basically a lot of Christian parents only want their children to learn what they think is Christian. So when it comes to science,
Yes.
they don't want their children to be taught about evolution. They want their children to be taught about creationism. But the problem with that is science does not have evidence to support creationism in the way a lot of fundamentalist Christians believe. And so you're asking, you want a public school district to teach a religious science course when that's not they shouldn't be a non-religious setting, basically, because not everybody that walks into that school is going to be a Christian coming from a Christian home. And you have to base your curriculum on what's available scientifically, your science curriculum.
And also, I think you and I know the Bible. And I think even venturing into these different viewpoints is not a bad thing in my mind. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning God, or do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, well, see ya. I have to if I don't believe this very thing about this specific whatever verse or whatever that I no longer embrace my faith. I think it's just so rigid. And I feel like I've grown to see faith or God as just a little bit like there's more room for doubt.
Yeah.
Not necessarily doubting God. I'm talking from my perspective, but
or doubting God.
Okay, but I mean from my perspective.
Yeah. Fair enough.
From my perspective, I don't doubt God. I haven't. But I just mean I've had other doubts about the world and how it relates to the Bible. But it's not all or nothing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Cool.
I also don't mean you're free to say what you want about any of that, obviously. I was speaking very personally from my perspective. Cool.
Cool.
Okay. Do we want? So I feel like we should move along more quickly. Do
Okay,
we want to
so
get to foreign
I'll just
policy?
I'll hit my points on foreign policy of what I think could happen. So with Gaza, we're probably looking at continued or complete destruction of Gaza. I mean, it's pretty much decimated now, but I don't think there will be any limitations placed on that conflict by the Trump administration. If anything, complete or free for all. Do whatever you want, basically. I mean, who knows? That could be an expanded war with Iran. I don't know. Next thing would be strengthening Russia by forcing Ukraine to lose a chunk of their land because Trump doesn't believe in that war, basically. I mean, the unfortunately, it's strange. The Republican Party used to be very hawkish, and this Republican Party is isolationists. They just want to get out of all the conflicts. But what's strange about Russia, from an American standpoint, is Russia is technically an adversary in foreign policy, and we see it placating to Russia with this Trump administration. Then we have the withdrawing from NATO as a possibility as well. And then we have positive stances towards autocratic or totalitarian or authoritarian regimes in countries, and then just a weakening of our alliances. That's that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then I wanted to touch on this. So that was kind of like policy standpoints of things that they've already said they wanted to do. So it wouldn't be crazy if those things happened, right? So it's like, if all of the policies they talk about are realized, that's basically what that list is.
Okay.
And then this is the more scary one. I mean, that's all pretty scary, but the next thing that some people are fearing is basically a slide into an autocracy. And what is an autocracy? I wrote down a definition from Britannica.
Can I read it?
Yes.
Britannica and Webster?
Webster's dictionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
An autocracy is a government where one person possesses unlimited power, unlimited centralized authority, and absolute sovereignty, usually vested in a monarch or dictator.
Yes.
Must be a big thing. That's why I added the tater.
That's right. I remember that scene. How it says that. And then we have, I wrote down authoritarianism as well. I feel like these are like, I was trying to think of I was thinking about like ice cream flavors. Like they're both ice cream, but the thing is they're like really bad, like terrible. So I was like, it's like poop ice cream and then like diarrhea ice cream. A little different. I don't know. It's really bad. You know, they're like different flavors of something terrible. Yeah. Sorry about that. That's a good analogy.
Oh, God. Are you talking about
authoritarianism and autocracy?
Yeah. Do you want to explain what authoritarianism is before?
So basically,
the example.
Yeah, with the poop. Okay, so it's like
you're like ice cream flavors.
Yeah. So authoritarianism is having a concentration of power in a leader, not constitutionally responsible to the people. Also marked by blind submission to authority and repression of individual thought and action.
That kind of already sounds like what he's doing or what he had been doing.
Definitely like the blind loyalty piece, for sure. And
also a little bit of the not constitutionally responsible to the people.
Yeah, he's talked about this. What is the term he used? Like not dissolving, like momentarily not following articles of the Constitution. I forget the word he used.
Every now and then, now and again. Just putting that on the back burner.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact word, but and yeah, so there's a fear among certain people about the dismantling of democracy. And like we see, of course, in this, if you want to abolish an entire department of the government, federal government, and then install political operatives into positions that were usually held by nonpartisan government officials. So it's kind of a wiping out of the government and turning it into a kind of a centralized authority that's controlled by one person, because they said that one of the criteria for working in the Trump administration is loyalty. You have to be loyal to Trump. And what people are supposed to do in the government is you swear an oath to be loyal, to uphold the Constitution. And so Trump is now placing himself above the Constitution. And that's kind of why, we're talking about this. And so
We saw that play out over and over again during his first presidency.
Right. And so what could happen as we descend into that, but also as this whole mass deportation thing as well, like I think we're going to see violence. I think it's very possible we'll see violence that we haven't seen in this country in quite a long time. Because we think about if he goes through with this policy, we're going to see families being ripped apart. Children from their parents, parents from their children from their grandparents, dads and moms, and all sorts of things. And we're going to see that, and people are going to go after, like, federal agents, the police, maybe the military are going to be going after people. And then you have the threat of when there was protesting in his last administration, he wanted to send the military out and he wanted to shoot people. And so now there aren't going to be constraints. Yeah. Well, like, he also wanted to shoot people who were coming into the United States. If they were in the what is it, the Rio Grande? The Rio Grande?
You mean he was just saying, like, just take them out? Like,
yeah, he just wanted to set snipers up and take them out.
wow.
Like, shoot people dead.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that's a very militaristic drive that could, I think there's an element that we could see violence, and I think it's going to be very shocking if it does occur. I mean, obviously it's going to be shocking if it occurs. I hope so. I hope none of this happens, right? That's what I hope. But I think we have, again, it's like we're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. We're looking at the future with clear eyes so we can be prepared for it and, like, understand what's happening. When we start to see, like, the pieces come into place, we're like, oh, I know what this is, recognizing it before it happens. So we kind of know what to do, know what to look for. What can we do? The other thing I was going to say that we will see, like, I don't think there's any way to avoid this, is we will see the worst parts of our society become emboldened, because we saw that during his first presidency. So just yesterday or today, there was this little protest that happened on Texas State University's campus, where two guys, I think, they stood out there with signs, and some of the signs said, women are property. And then it said, and then it said, the one just said, one sign said women are property. Okay, and then another sign said types of property, women, slaves, animals, cars, land, etc. Another one said that gay people are worthy of death. And because of the policy of Texas being a public university, they have to leave them there. So because of free speech.
I wanted to read more about the article, but I thought I understood that these people weren't even...
They weren't part of the community.
They weren't part of the university. So why on earth are they even allowed on the university's property? I don't understand that.
That's Texas.
It's saying horrific things. It doesn't make any sense. Like,
no, it doesn't. Yeah. Okay.
It's just so gross.
So we wanted to kind of get to the more hopeful / this is kind of a longer episode. I feel like we took a lot of detours.
How long are we? Where are we at?
We're at an hour and 2 minutes in.
Oh, goodness. We need to hurry.
Yeah. So kind of what do we do from here? And I wrote down a list of things.
We'll just speed it real fast because it'll be just kidding.
The first point I wrote down was educate yourself and read books. And so I wanted to highlight some of the books I've read that have been helpful for me. I think I'm going to say this is probably the most helpful one I've read about, in particular, the autocracy piece. And so This book is called How Democracies Die, and it's by Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt. Don't know if I said their names right, but they are two professors at Harvard, and it's very well written. It talks about all the different types of governments that have fallen, democracies that have fallen, how they fell, who their leaders were, and what the characteristics are of an authoritarian or autocratic leader or dictator. And they're all in here. It's very fascinating. Donald Trump is in here.
And so just, I think I want to say, like, we're obviously coming at this from a democratic perspective, but I think if we can just for a moment think about, or if coming at it from a different side, I wouldn't want, if the Democrats were in office, I wouldn't want what was happening to be hurting the other side. Now, I know that someone's definition of being hurt by something can vary. But we have a democracy right now. And I think if we can't take it for granted how that functions. Um, I think I'm not expressing myself like I want to, but do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, I think it's, we
I
have a
think
democracy right now, and I feel like there's a little bit of a backlash because we are a democracy right now that is multi-ethnic, multiracial, kind of a pluralistic society, and there's a backlash to push us back into a white patriarchal controlled society.
okay. Well,
And the only way you can do that is if you suppress people. And if you want to try to control them, these are some options for you. Autocracy is an option.
I think I'm just trying to say, like, if it would be nice if we could just live and let live
Right.
without harming each other, without being hateful, without hurting each other. And I
Yeah,
think the only way you can have that is within a democracy.
for sure. Yeah.
I
So
think that
people's
this is
freedoms
just
are
just what
protected.
I'm trying to really poorly say right now.
Yeah. And I think that's
Just
what
as
people
long as no
want.
one is
But
harming anyone else.
right.
And I mean legitimately harming, not
Well,
just they don't agree with them.
yeah, but I think that was the stance of the Democratic Party. That was the message of Kamala Harris
I
was
mean,
we have
that's what I
more in
think.
common than we have in that is different. But the message of Donald Trump is um there's
My
an
way, the
enemy
highway.
within, and those
Yeah,
enemies are the people who don't support me. And so we have to get rid
yeah.
of them. We have to attack them. And so it's a very
Right.
different message. And that's the message of an autocrat.
I
We
agree
have
with
to,
you.
yeah. Okay, so the next book, I don't feel like this is as easy to read. It's called The Road to Unfreedom, Russia, Europe, America. It's by Timothy Snyder. Timothy Snyder is a professor at Yale and also at this institute in Vienna. Then I read this book by Annie Applebaum called The Twilight of Democracy, The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. She lived in
Love.
Poland for a while. She has a little bit of an understanding of what eventually happened in Poland and how that might be turning around a little bit now. Then I read this
Yes,
book by Masha Gessen. It's a little interesting. It's The Future is History, How Totalitarianism Reclaimed Russia. So this book takes you from like Gorbachev and then the rise of Putin and kind of where they're at right now. So it's kind of informative to see a history it's written through the lens of different Russians that she knew and knows. So you kind of live that experience with them. And
yeah.
then the last book that I would recommend to anybody, it's super short. It's 126 pages, but it's like tiny. It's like the size of my face.
On
Tiny
tyranny.
face.
Tiny face.
It's called On Tyranny: 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder, professor of
Right.
Yale. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And so these are great books. Books I'm going to be reading: Strong Men,
Oh,
with
I
a
haven't
new
seen that one yet.
epilogue, Mussolini to the Present, Ruth Ben Giat. I don't know if I said her name right.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, so that one's new. I'm going to
Is
read
that
that one.
brand new, like as of today?
Brand new as in like a couple weeks ago. And then this one's brand new as of today. This one is by Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Zyblatt or Zblatt. It's their newer book called Tyranny of the Minority.
Okay.
That looks interesting. This one I've read part of, Democracy's Awakening, Notes on the State of America by Heather Cox Richardson. She also has a Substack, I believe, and a little news blurb that she does every day for like 10
I've
minutes.
seen her Substack, Democracy Awakening.
Yeah. And then the last one is another book by Masha Gessen called Surviving Autocracy. So
It's a cool
I've
book
read,
cover. I like that one.
yeah, I've read 4 of those and I have 4 of those to read. Or sorry, I've read 5 of them and have 4 to read. Anyway,
Okay.
so educate
So
yourself.
educate yourself, read books.
Yeah.
That's first.
Understand how this government should work and is supposed to work. So
Okay.
educate yourself in your civics course. Then take care of yourself, right? Choose health. Keep your friends and family close. Find inspiration. Prepare ourselves for what could lie ahead. So we're doing that right now. I was gonna look at a couple of little tiny things from this book that I told you about, Timothy Snyder's book.
Okay.
He goes more in depth, but I'm just gonna kind of list. So the second thing he thinks that lesson you should learn is to defend institutions, and so he talks about, looking after institutions that do good in our country, and that defend the rule of law. So like the ACLU, the NAACP, the Human Rights Campaign, like keeping an eye out for the court systems. I don't know how we would do that exactly, but supporting journalists, supporting magazines and newspapers that are holding, speaking truth to power kind of stuff. So those are all things that we can definitely do. And he talks about that as one thing to do. The other one I thought was interesting: make eye contact and small talk. And so that's
With
basically like,
people? Just
yeah, like
random
when you
people?
go out, like make eye contact with people, smile at people, get to know your surroundings, see who's there. It's an important thing, he says. The other one is contribute to good causes. So donate your time, donate your money to, this kind of similar to defend your institutions, but I guess this is more like, I don't know, your local food bank, or you donate to organizations that are doing good in your community and your
I
country.
like the idea of the small talk thing because that's true. I mean, you can make a lot of assumptions about people
Yeah.
without ever speaking to them. And I'm sure today that we've made some assumptions about people.
Yeah.
And it's hard as human beings. But, the idea that you can just start conversations and try to get to the heart of why people feel the way they do about different things, it does make a difference.
He also talks about, so he looks at it slightly more deeply. He says this is not just polite, it's part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. So that's kind of what you're saying. He also says
No, it's not what I'm saying, but okay. Go ahead.
It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust.
Okay.
If we enter into a culture of denunciation, you will want to know the psychological landscape of your daily life.
I think that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think I was more leaning more toward the positive end of that is that perhaps you can see more deeply into why a person thinks differently than you, and it might not always be nefarious like reason.
Right. Yeah. So you're learning about your surroundings, basically.
Right. But I think I just went a little more positive than
he's
telling me to be more. Well, yeah. Yeah. He's saying, learn who not to trust. I don't know if I was necessarily in that moment saying that.
Yeah. And then,
although that's a good skill.
Yeah. And then the last point I was going to focus, and so there are 21 of these, and I'm just highlighting, I guess, 4. Learn from peers in other countries, right? So, and keep your friendships abroad, it says. Make sure your passport is up to date. I feel like some of these books that I've discussed are also learning about what happened in other countries, but he's also saying literally stay connected to people in other countries if you can. Like if you know somebody in another country, so like keep that friendship working and going. Okay.
So then supporting institutions.
We talked about that. Some of those institutions. Okay. Yeah.
We've already talked about it.
Yeah.
You already talked about it. Okay.
I did.
Okay.
And then the other, so we're kind of moving into, I know we're running out of time, so we'll try to wrap it up, but this is kind of the more hopeful part of our discussion. I ended up writing a poem this morning because I needed to get some of my emotions out. I'm not going to read it because it was rather dark, but it was helpful because I was able to process through some of my emotions. But our mutual friend...
Was it a haiku?
It was not a haiku. I don't think. No, it was not a haiku. It didn't follow proper rhythm.
Haikunomics.
Yeah, haikunomics. Bad haikunomics. So this is a poem by our really wonderful friend Laura Dwyer, who we hope to have on the podcast soon. She's going to join us when we talk about yoga and pathways to healing. So
yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. So Laura wrote this.
She's really gifted in that way.
Do you want to read this, or would you like to read
you go ahead.
Me? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was drunk with rage, and then I realized rage is blinding. Rage makes one racist and selfish. Rage will make me one of them. I have forgotten how to eat, but I must eat. I need strength to fight and strength to love. I will eat for strength to hope. Weakness will make me one of them. I will soften my heart again. A hardened heart will make me one of them. I will stand for love. I will stand for tomorrow. No, I will start today.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So, you have written above there, remember the women we've celebrated on this podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
And then they're women who have overcome. And I sort of said that to you earlier today.
Right.
That and I've said that to a couple people today, that nothing come equality and being respected, and nothing nothing important, nothing worth striving for comes easily. There's out that these women have resisted and fought and tried again and fallen down and had to get back up, and it's they've done it all throughout history. And what makes us any different to expect that we shouldn't have to fight and keep striving and keep trying to overcome, keep trying to be heard, to be understood, and all of that.
Right.
Do you want to add to that?
No, I think that's, yeah. I mean, I was thinking just about,
It gives me hope because many of them have succeeded to get us where we are today. I mean,
right.
where we are today is pretty darn good in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We still have so far to go, but think about where we were.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking also about, our Black brothers and sisters who, I mean,
Already know what it's like.
yeah. I mean, this is their life, basically. Their life has been struggle, has been, blood, sweat, and tears.
And LGBTQIA
Yeah.
people of all walks of life.
Indigenous people, and there's been constant struggle in this country, and so they understand that already, and I find that interesting because if you think about how Black Americans voted, they saw that they were more clear-eyed. They could see this man is not, this division that he has is not what we want, because this will hurt us, and this will hurt the people we love, and this will hurt all of us. Anyway, but they have persisted in the face of horrible things. And so, yeah, and like those are the people we celebrate on this show. And I think that was something that, we realized, we might be coming to a place in our country where that will be a lived experience for white women now. And for all of us, really, all of us, no matter if we're a man, a woman, a white, Black, whatever, like it may be, it's a call for all of us to stand up for what's right, stand up for justice, to stand up for one another, to stand up for compassion and for love and for just simply what's right.
If we can stop othering each other.
Yeah.
Is it that kind of the message of, definitely the Christian message, or was Christ's message, Jesus' message, love your enemies?
Yeah, so it's kind of like remembering these people because, remembering these people because we are looking into the face of what might be pretty dark, what could be dark for this country, and just kind of preparing ourselves and reminding ourselves of the people who are our heroes. And as Maya Angelou said, our heroes. Maya Angelou. And so I don't know if I'm going to read this whole poem. I think
maybe just mention it.
Yeah. So I found Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise, as
it is a beautiful poem.
It's really, really beautiful. Just the first verse, I'll just read it. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise.
That's cool.
Really, it kind of gives me goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps.
It is really poignant.
Yeah. And then we were going to look at some quotes. We might not do all these quotes. I wrote a ton of them down. But the first one, and I have yet to read his books. There are a couple of books. My friend Ashley loves reading this person's writings. His name is Parker J. Palmer. He writes, in times of deep darkness, we not only need light, we need to be light for one another. I thought that was beautiful. And
I don't know who that person is. I've never read anything by that person.
I've got 2 books over there that I haven't read yet, but you could read them anytime. Another quote by MLK Jr. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.
Cool.
Let's see. Viktor Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. Maya Angelou, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then Rosa Parks. You must never be fearful about what you are doing when it's right.
Oof. That's a tough one, though, because so many people can claim what they're doing is right, quote unquote.
For sure, but
In her case, absolutely, 100%, she
right,
was right.
right. But
But
this
I'm
is
just
for
saying.
us, though. This is for
I know.
like
Okay, okay,
the
okay,
people
okay.
who are not trying to oppress and,
100%.
kill people. Not that
And
the other side's necessarily killing people, but
Rosa Parks was on
hopefully
the
not.
right side.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then another one of her quotes, stand for something or you will fall for anything. Today's mighty oak is yesterday's nut that held its ground.
Nice.
That was beautiful. And
That's
then
cool.
we've got 2 quotes from Kamala Harris. My daily challenge to myself is to be part of the solution, to be a joyful warrior in the battle to come.
Cool.
And then the last one for
Kamala
my
Harris.
president, Kamala Harris. What I want young women and girls to know is you are powerful and your voice matters.
Yeah, I
And
like it.
yeah,
This episode, I feel like got deep in ways I didn't expect, and I think it's been hard for me to kind of voice what I want to say because in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, you prepare to talk about this, so I feel like I'm holding my tongue in certain ways, not wanting to like overshare or speak too boldly about something. It's kind of been interesting in that way.
okay.
I feel like I've been tongue-tied a few times because I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that. I don't know if I want to say it that way. I don't know if I want to say that at all. And
Yeah.
then it comes out in some random way.
You like self-monitoring.
I think so, which is actually like I'm proud of myself because that never used to be the case with me. I'm a blurter, like a big time blurter.
I should probably be more self-censoring. I mean, I talked about poop ice cream, so
That's true.
that's pretty gross.
That's gross.
I also said diarrhea ice cream. That's pretty.
Sure did.
Whoa.
Die.
Well, it's pretty
as we lovingly call it.
Yeah, die ice cream. Okay, on that note, the last thing we were going to do was play part of Kamala Harris's concession speech because, and when I watched this, I cried because I cried for what could have been.
Yeah.
I cried for the message that she was sharing. I cried for the policy choices she would have made. I cried for her vision of America because it is the better vision. It is a hopeful vision. It is a vision where everyone can thrive, where nobody is marginalized or imprisoned or
demeaned,
put in front of a military tribunal or labeled as the enemy within. It was
devalued.
Inclusive. Yeah, no one's devalued. It was an inclusive, like even like Republicans, let's come to the table, let's work together, let's make this country better. But instead, America chose the other. And that is shocking and terrible. Anyway, so she gave this beautiful speech and I found it very moving. So we were just going to share just a few minutes of it and then we'll say our goodbyes. So let me share my screen.
Can't believe
what?
Today.
Sorry. Yeah, I need to be better about monitoring myself, Cara. You did a good job.
I mean,
you said you were tongue-tied, but you didn't talk about ice cream like that did.
That's true.
I ruined ice cream for people, Cara.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
You're just being real, which is totally fine. But
just being real, Cara. But still.
Well, they don't have to watch it if they don't want to.
That's true. Okay. Hopefully we don't get a commercial. Hopefully it goes straight to it. All right.
Please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. Look, many of you know I started out as a prosecutor, and throughout my career, I saw people at some of the worst times in their lives, people who had suffered great harm and great pain, and yet found within themselves the strength and the courage and the resolve to take the stand, to take a stand, to fight for justice, to fight for themselves, to fight for others. So let their courage be our inspiration. Let their determination be our charge. And I'll close with this. There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. HU. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I thank you all.
All right.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I had a little pop-up ad play while the video was playing. Did you hear it?
I heard something go, like that. But that's all I
Well,
heard.
it would have been. Okay, good. I hope it didn't ruin it. So
Yeah,
was
I
like,
didn't hear it. I didn't hear it, so
Okay.
hopefully it was okay because it was it was sharing my audio, so it was sharing that. We can double
Okay,
check
good.
it.
It popped up on my email page, and I was like,
I think I heard you go, oh.
okay, maybe because I was like, oh. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
That was
okay.
a great speech.
It was. I made me teary again because it's just like,
She's amazing.
yeah. I mean,
Well, I was thinking about this, how gracious she was in defeat.
yeah,
It speaks to who she is, kind of person she is.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. But her
that-
call, don't give up, roll up your sleeves.
Yeah, but also how she responded in defeat. Because do you think that would have been the same
Well, we know it
response?
wouldn't have been because the last time it
Exactly.
happened, there was an insurrection. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so obvious to me,
Right.
the distinction between these two people.
I know.
But anyway.
Well,
Well, that was long, but effective.
it was long. Yeah. But, I feel like all of us were going to be experiencing a lot of emotions for some time because, like, just now, we could have talked about this for probably another 10 minutes and I would have gone off about, the character of Donald Trump and how it's unfit, basically. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to deal with my own emotions. But yeah, that was a great speech. And so we hope that this was hopefully helpful. I don't know, in some way. Maybe if you feel less alone, then it was a good thing that we did this. Or at least just hearing two people try to process through our current events.
Yeah.
So, any last
All right.
thoughts, Cara?
On to episode 9.
On to episode 9. It's hard to
But not
believe
right
we're at
now. Not right now, later.
Right. No, we're not going to go into episode 9. I don't know what that is yet, so we'll find out.
I don't either.
Okay. All right. We wish you all the best, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Sounds good. Good night.